Good morning, everyone. Welcome again to another webinar session for our teachers and school administrators. I am Ms. Mitch, Program Manager and Master Trainer from First EduSpec Incorporated.
Yes, good morning, Miss Mitch. Good morning to all our guest teachers and administrators. Ako po si JV Salayo, consultant po for First EduSpec Incorporated. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning po, Sir JB. Okay, so we would like to thank again everyone for watching the first webinar session with the topic Preparing the Schools and Ourselves as Teachers for Online Learning. So we learned a lot from Miss Tony's presentation. So in online learning, the responsibility of the learning is given more on the students because materials are already available and the teachers will act as the moderator and facilitator of learning. So, given the different options for online learning, of course, the school should know what works for their learners.
Oo nga, so parang ngayon, no, sa school talaga, ang daming uncertainties, ang daming tanong. So, kaya siguro yung mga friends natin, nung nalaman nila na may ganito, they're now with us, no, for our episode 2. Okay. So, teachers, administrators, tama, no? Parang ngayon, dapat in-service sessions tayo, no? Pero anong nangyayari? Hindi pa rin natin alam, no? So, stay tuned po. Let's listen into our invited guest for our second episode, no? Para po masagot yung mga tanong natin. Miss Mitch, siguro, introduce na natin yung ating next speaker.
Okay po. So, since we have a different topic for this morning, which is about classroom management and online learning platforms, meron po tayong invited guest. She is an associate dean of this is Thames International and part-time senior lecturer and researcher of Miriam College. She also teaches courses in various fields in business, education, and the social sciences. She is an online teacher and trained by the World Bank Institute in e-learning facilitation in 2010. She has trained teachers on teaching online facilitations nationwide and basic education teachers in graduate school. She's currently working on her dissertation for a doctorate degree in public administration in the University of the Philippines National College of Public Administration and Governance. So may I present to you our guest speaker, Ms. Sheila Dingcong. Good morning po.
Morning,
Good morning.
everybody.
Morning po, Ms. Sheila.
Yeah, good morning. It's so nice to be here.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's so great to be invited here in your webinars. There's a lot of changes happening right now, so it's really good that we continue the conversation. Let's share, let's talk about it, and I think I'm given the topic on classroom management on an online platform this morning, so I'd like to share to you my experience.
Yeah. So before Ma'am Sheila starts, no, dear participants, dear audience, no, keep your comments and questions coming in the comment section. Type nyo lang po, and then the latter part, second half, or after the second half of Ma'am Sheila's presentation, we'll have time to answer your question. Keep them coming po. Okay? Ma'am Sheila, we're good? We're ready?
Okay, so we can maybe start. We can flash my slide. Okay, so for this morning, I'd like to share with you class management in online learning platforms. In a virtual environment. Next slide, please. So I think I was already introduced. So just another short introduction again. I'm Associate Dean of Thames International. It's a business school in Quezon City. I'm also a senior lecturer in Miriam College. I've been with Miriam College for 15 years now. So, I'm just a senior lecturer part-time in the college, but I also teach graduate school. And then I'm also a financial advisor. So I'm a practitioner in the financial insurance industry with PruLife UK. And I also do research I am an online facilitator. So I began in 2010, as mentioned earlier, trained under the World Bank Institute. I design curriculum, so I actually create subjects in college and graduate school. I train teachers nationwide. I handle projects with SHED and then with other funding agencies, international funding agencies. I'm also a student. As mentioned, I'm trying my best to finish my dissertation. And I'm a mother of three. Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. So what I will share with you today is mainly on class management and online facilitation. So let's see the differentiation on classroom management as we used to understand it based in a four-walled classroom vis-a-vis online facilitation now that we are transferring into a virtual classroom. And then, of course, the teacher as a social director, because it is really in this role that the teacher exhibits management of the class and the learning experience. Then the second part of my talk today would pretty much be my journey as an online facilitator. I really believe that the sharing of knowledge doesn't only come from what you know, but what you really experience. So how is it in actual real life, and how was my experience in managing online classes? And that would be my sharing for you for today. Next slide, please. So I'd like to start with mindset. It's always like how we perceive things. So I'd like to mention the flipped class approach and social constructivism as the two important paradigms or theories that would guide us in going through our classes in an online platform. It's not just flipping blooms. No, instead of starting from remembering to creating, now we do creation to remembering, which is actually more effective. But it is more on the the experiences of students inside an online platform. Okay, and of course, are clearly understood by the learners in terms of where they're coming from and how they engage with each other. Third is that learning is scaffolded. So it's not just one whole bunch of ideas, but there are building blocks to learning. So you can start with one block and then build on another block and another block. And basically the first blocks would pretty much rely on or build upon the past experiences and prior knowledges of our students. Because we do not see them now as blank slates, we see them as individuals, as people who have created a perspective of the world. Yan. Based on the next line, that knowledge learned is contextualized in the learner's environment because they belong to a certain environment. So from that kind of environment, their perspectives are formed. So that's how they look at the world. and not from any point of view, from other people's point of view, but from their own point of view. But that's also very important for them to interact with their co-learners or classmates, so that the different perspectives of all the learners in the classroom can be engaged, and then they can process this so that they can understand each other better and understand how to apply concepts in different perspectives and realities. Okay, so with this theoretical perspectives, the flipped classroom and social constructivism, that's how we enter a virtual classroom. Okay, so next slide, please. So I'd like to share with you the model, the e-learning model that I subscribe to. And I learned this in 2010 when I took a training of trainers for online facilitation under the World Bank Institute. And this is Gilly Salmon's 5-stage model in e-moderating. So it's very clear because Dr. Salmon works from a scaffolding perspective, wherein there are steps or ladder that one must go through, but this is not fixed. Okay, just to tell you right away that this can be flexible. This can actually move around this ladder, but I just like to go through it in explaining the initial steps of going inside the virtual classroom. So first is really access and motivation. Yeah, and access and motivation is very crucial because that's when you onboard the students in the virtual class, like they are enrolling or registering in our school, in our physical school. Now we go to the virtual classroom, and they also have to access the virtual classroom. And from the very initial start of how their experience of accessing the classroom, is it difficult, is it too complicated, or is it easy? That's already a start of making them feel welcome, motivating them, building their excitement that, oh, this is so easy, it's not bad after all. A lot of misconceptions about online learning abound, and that they're saying that it's very difficult, it's kind of complex, it's a lot of negativities. But if you make access for your students quite easy, seamless, that's the start of motivating them to come to class. So that's the first level of Salmon's 5-step model. And then next we have online socialization. So when they enter, we don't tell them right away that we should discuss this and that, go right away to serious topics and serious discussions. But like maybe the first day of class in school, there is really socialization, getting to know each other, like, oh yeah, you're my classmate again, or how was summer, or how was the quarantine, or whatnot. We try to establish an atmosphere that is not serious. We try to establish a friendly atmosphere, a welcoming atmosphere. You have there the warmth of each other. So later on in the second part of my talk, I'll give you examples of what I do on how to create this atmosphere for my students. Online socialization. We know that they're very social as Gen Z students. Their use of social media is quite high. For several years now, the Philippines has stopped, based on research, has stopped the data on the number of hours spent, highest number of hours spent per day on social media, and the Philippines is the number one. We spend on the average of 4 hours per day, each user of social media. So that's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, etc. So that's how maybe social media addicted we are. Okay. Next level, after online socialization, we have information exchange. Okay, so that's the start of discussing the topics in class. And pretty much here we motivate our students to share, to speak. If we ask for recitations inside the classroom, there's also recitations in an online class. And to manage that everyone speaks, they're given the opportunity, for example, in discussion forums or there are boards that you can post in your thoughts and opinion. We ask them uh, something on the topic, and then they are able to contribute. Okay, I think what is an advantage in an online class is that actually all students are given the opportunity to speak, to contribute, and actually they're required. You can require them, so they are forced to contribute. While sometimes inside the classroom, the four-walled classroom, not everybody can recite, diba? Because of maybe time constraints, or a lot of them maybe are shy, or they are not prepared, etc. But in the online class, they can actually be given enough time to read, to reflect before they can post. So everybody now participates in an online class. And I think the role of the teacher there is really to encourage and motivate and to provide that opportunity for everybody to contribute. Okay? Next, after information exchange, there comes the knowledge construction. And when we say knowledge construction, this is the time when students discuss among themselves. We also have group work in online platforms. We can group them together, whether it's asynchronous or live. They can work together as teams, and then they can discuss, and then they can come up with a project. So again, socialization is there. And the last level of Salmon's five-stage model is development. So pretty much like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The highest level is development, wherein they're able to create new ideas, new interpretations, and meaning making of the topics of the class. Okay, and there again, the teacher continues to provide motivation, provides the push, continuously encourages the student to do this, to have that kind of a level of knowledge development. Okay, so that's Salmon's five-stage model. Sometimes you don't really need to go through each step, but sometimes students can jump from one step to another. Maybe, for example, online socialization, because they are already they already know each other. They've been together for so many years in the regular school, so they would go right away to information exchange. But pretty much these steps will be passed through by all the learners in the class. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so what is am I taking too long? Class management and online facilitation. So here we have the different definition of class management and online facilitation. For class management, it is a system of utilizing a wide variety of skills and techniques to ensure that classes run smoothly without disruptive behavior from students. So in class management, we try to minimize disruption. Okay, that's the key word there. While in online facilitation, we welcome disruptions. We are actually in a very disruptive world now. We all have heard about the VUCA world, a volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous world. So we work on that kind of a context. So in online classes, we usually, we call it online facilitation. The role of the teacher shifts from the traditional teacher to a facilitator. Okay, so what is an online facilitate, or what is online facilitation? It is an act of managing learners and learning in online platform, which is student-centered and focuses on managing communication online. So the key word there is communication. We don't consider them disruptive, Any type of communication is a way for students to inform us of maybe how they're doing, what is their current state, if they're undergoing stress, if they're problematic, if they're happy, if they're sad, etc. So communication really is the key in online learning because we are not seeing each other face to face. Okay? And we recognize disruptions in the environment. Okay? Next slide, please. So, who are our Gen Z learners? It's very important maybe for us to recognize this because the millennials are also different from Gen Z learners. Okay, these are younger people born in the year 2000 to 2015. Okay, actually we already have the Alpha generation in our primary years in our school. Okay, so the Gen Z learners are students born into a world with smartphones, tablets, and computers. So that's their context, that's their world. Okay? They are social entrepreneurs and like they're learning to have meaning and purpose. Okay? Entrepreneurs is not just selling, it's not just coming up with a business, it's coming up with ideas, innovative ideas and creative ideas. They don't stand for the status quo. Yeah. They're natural rebels. Okay, the Gen Z learners. So they question a lot. They're born into an information revolution from artificial intelligence, self-driving cars, and drones to virtual assistants. Yeah, we have AIs now everywhere, and they're sometimes pretty scary, but also sometimes pretty helpful. They like to make and create. So they don't just copy, borrow, but they make and create, maybe from something that they borrowed and copied. They want to connect, collaborate, and share, so they're very, very social, highly social individuals, Gen Z learners. Their social circle is global, okay? Take note, global. It's not just local, it's not just community-based, it's not just national, not just the country, but global. That's their social circle. The Gen Z, it's easier to gain an audience, a stage, and the attention of the right people. So, I don't know if you're aware that the number one YouTube earner in the world is like a 12-year-old kid, like a 12-year-old Chinese kid. Yeah, you can search that on Google. The number one top earner, like earning 20 plus million a year, US dollars. Yeah, a kid. That's a lot of money for one kid, and for that boy to have, I mean, that boy has the capacity already as a very young boy to be on top of YouTube. Wow. They talk in images and emojis, and they prefer YouTube to TV. And the TV generation maybe is the Gen X. And they like information in bite-sized chunks and prefer hands-on learning. So no prolonged lecture, no long readings, that's for doctorate and master's program. But for our basic ed and even for college, they like bite chunks information because they will research it actually. They will confirm if the information that we are giving to them is valid or not. And they will actually question it also. Yeah. So this is our Gen Z learners. What do we need to be in order to facilitate learning for these Gen Z learners? Next slide, please. Okay, so we have the critical skills for our teacher. It's not just four. We always hear the 4 C's in education: communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and what else? Critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity. Yes, that's the 4. But I would like to stress that it's also very important now to develop connectivity among the teachers. Our competency level should be high now. We should develop our computer literacy, not just that, connectivity even to our co-teachers, to peers, to colleagues in the Philippines, or even worldwide. Yeah. So we cannot not connect. Our students are highly connected. Teachers should also be connected. And of course, we don't forget to embrace culture. This naman, grounds us in our context, in who we are, and our perspective of the world. Okay, so embrace culture. So the 6 C's, okay, not just the 4, but 6 C's that I think we should always remember. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so teacher as social director, why am I saying this? Because we're talking about classroom management. And pretty much in classroom management, it is our social director role that we should use to manage an online class. So according to Hootstein, there are actually 4 pairs of shoes that teachers have to, demonstrate their responsibility. So we have the instructor, the typical knowledge bearer role that you have to provide our students, the instructor, the program director, you're the one organizing the class, designing all the activities, the content, etc., the timing. Then we have the technical assistant role of the teacher. So we have to really be techy now because we have to provide support for our students when they're asking how they should upload their assignments, how should they design, what should be the format, the to-dos in online learning. So we also have to know this because we cannot say I do not know. We will know. We will try to know and ask our colleagues, even ask our children. They might help us in supporting our students. And of course, very important note is the social director role, which, is a creator of collaborative environments and it develops a sense of community within and among groups. So that's a big role for social director. You have to create that atmosphere in an online platform that people feel welcome, that it is not a it's not very formal. It can be formal, but the relationship is there, like we have in the classroom. We develop relationship with our students, and then we try to also encourage them to develop relationships with their classmates. The social director stimulates learner participation because, again, isolation is a very demotivating factor. If I am an online learner and if I'm not motivated, my tendency is not to go to the online class because I have the freedom actually to choose not to log in, open my computer and log in and go to our virtual classroom because I'm just at home, and nobody's gonna, tell me to go to the class unless my parents would be very helpful or my older siblings. But pretty much I am self-directed as a learner at home. So as a social director in an online class, we should very much encourage our students. There should be a strategy that we will use to make sure that they go to the class, that they come to class in the online class. Okay? And ensures high level of interactivity with peers, so they interact with their peers and the teacher. Because there are designs in online classes that is just self, independent learning. Like one student can go through the whole course alone. They can just do the activities there, read everything, answer quizzes, submit assignments by themselves, just alone, and then finish the whole course. But as social director, we should design the course that will push them to interact with their co-learners, to push them to work in groups or in teams. So that's the role of the social director. Okay? Next slide, please. Do I still have time? Please remind me. Okay. So I think this is my last slide for the first part. So being a social director brings out multiple perspectives, summarizes and synthesizes. I admit my weakness is summarizing, but that's a role of the social director. So we have to do this so that we can give our students the whole picture at the end of the week, maybe, on what was talked about, discussed, and learned in the past week. We also, as social director, we also have to motivate our learners to work with peers, discover and co-create knowledge, and we are responsible in ensuring the practice of netiquette, that's online etiquette. So we have to know the online etiquette, Manages online conflict. Okay, that's very real. We have bullies inside the classroom. We also have bullies in online classes. And in charge of injecting icebreakers in class to lighten the mood. Okay, so there's also icebreakers in online classes. Okay, so I think with that, injecting icebreakers, let's go to the next slide because it's now, I think, time for us to have a break. Right. Okay. So,
very parallel din, no? In so many ways, may parallelism din naman ang actual classroom environment sa online teaching, Ma'am Sheila, no? Pero in some ways, may adjustments na gagawin ng mga teachers natin. Right. So, ayan, ako, ang ganda ng icebreakership, no? Basag na basag yung ice, no? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Maybe at this point, we can accommodate one question. No? Mabilis lang. May nakuha akong shout out to Sir Arnel Clavero, my good friend. Thank you for joining us. Ito yung tanong niya, Ma'am Sheila. Okay. Is the Salmon 5-stage model the new format for e-learning plans? Ito na ba yung bagong format natin sa lesson plan or learning plan?
It is actually not a format, but it is like a guide for us in designing our classes. Like if you design an activity for the first day of class, will that encourage online socialization? Yeah. So these are like guideposts in our journey in our online class. Not exactly the format, but guideposts that remember we should provide first access and motivation, because if we don't motivate our students, they may, be turned off na, oh, this is pala the online class, it's so boring, it's so ganyan. So, just guideposts, but not actually the format.
Yeah, and siguro parang checklists din, no? Parang teachers should just every now and then check, nagagawa ko ba to, nangyayari pa ba yan, ganun. Yeah, thank you, Miss Sheila.
Sure.
Yeah, Miss Mitch?
There are also some good comments from our viewers today. Sabi nga po ni Miss Annie Lizen, this classroom management is very relevant topic for teachers right now, since online learning somehow it can be new for most of us teachers. So we're still clueless on paano ba natin i-manage yung class. Online nga po siya, di ba? So the episode for today would really help us to understand more and gain from or hear experience from Miss Sheila. So we're really excited to know paano niyo po na ma-manage yung class, paano po kaya pag online, if you're not really seeing the students physically. Even I very excited na rin pong marinig kung ano po yung mga experiences nyo in terms of classroom management sa online learning.
Okay, siguro may naisip akong icebreaker impromptu, Ma'am Sheila, no? Shout out sa mga principals and administrators or subject coordinators na nandito ngayon sa ating episode, no? Question, ang tanong, nakapag-faculty meeting na ba kayo ngayong May? Yung dapat i-in-service na kayo. Nasubukan nyo na ba? Anong platform ang ginamit nyo para makapag-online faculty meeting? Kasi, di ba, Ma'am Sheila, parang yun din yung experience natin, di ba? So, kung kumusta ang experience sa mga teachers naman, ang tanong, kumusta ang experience nyo sa pag-attend ng online faculty meeting kung meron na? Okay, sige, i-type nyo yung mga comments nyo sa comment section. We just want to have a pulse kung kumusta tayo dito sa ating preparation. Not yet with students, pero tayo lang muna, no, as school officers, administrators, and teachers. Okay, go! Comment na po kayo.
Okay po. So, we'll be reading the comments and questions later. So, nakikita namin the questions are flowing already, but we'll have it later po. So, let's have the second part of the presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so let's resume. I'd like to share to you my online journey as an online facilitator. So I started, as I mentioned earlier, in 2010 with the training under the World Bank Institute, and I actually didn't implement it right away or use the skills that I learned. I actually had a deeper reflection on my experience under the World Bank because it was an international training. So I listed down the things that want I wanted to have in the online training, like those that I missed, and then I wrote it down. And when I designed my own online class, I placed it inside. For example, the live classes. We didn't have that when I was trained in 10 years ago. But then I said we need to have live synchronous classes. So I tested it on my own, and I implemented it, and I think it was enriched. So every time actually I do an online class, it is pretty much different from the other one. It's like my journey as an online facilitator is always an improvement from the last one. Okay, so this is an example of a live class, the picture there, that I facilitated. Um, and then I use the Wiz IQ platform. So it's a live online class wherein the whiteboard in the middle is really a whiteboard wherein everybody can write down, can touch the screen, from their end, from their computer, they can touch and write down. So it's the writing of all those who attended the class. Okay. So next slide, please. That's very exciting. In Thames International, we are trimester school, so we have the winter, spring, summer, and fall terms. And due to the ECQ in March, it was good timing because we started our spring term. Okay, so prior to the ECQ, registration was ongoing, but then we had to shift the registration online. And pretty much since March 16, we all did everything online. So we're ending the term early June. So pretty much 3 weeks from now, 2 to 3 weeks from now, and I'll share with you my experience on this one. Okay, next slide, please. So I'm sharing to you the home pages of the two platforms that I use in online classes. So the left one is on Freeju, that's what we use in Thames International. And then the other one here is on Moodle, that's what we use in Maram College. But I think we're going to change now our platform this coming school year. But for the longest time, we had the Moodle in our MCE learning system. Okay, next slide, please. So here are the home pages of my the specific courses I handled this past semester. So for Thames International, I also do handle one subject that's entrepreneurial leadership. So I have like 38 students there, but I divided them into 2 sections. So this is where you see the homepage, the topics throughout the weeks, and then the different reading materials that I have for my students. And on the right side for the Moodle, I have the 2 subjects that I handle last semester, and these are the home pages. My first tip there is to, number 1, create a very good course banner that's attractive to the students and very relatable to the subject. Okay, so the one with the sunset and the sunrise is basically a course that I created, I designed together with some faculty on local knowledge and ethnoecology as a Maram College elective. So it's a very specific course on local knowledge because we'd like to establish perspectives from our students and then grounding them into their environment. And that's why we combined it with ethnoecology because Maram College is also very strong in our environment programs. So this is one unique course that is only offered in Maram College, and I, together with my colleagues in the environment department, created this course for our students. And the other one is below. It's for our leisure and tourism management students, where I officially belong as a lecturer. Okay, next slide, please. So how do I start my class? Okay, so I start my class with a class orientation. Pretty much, I have to give a class orientation because they need to know what they're entering into. What this course is all about, what my course is all about. So I create a video and I go through the online class one by one in the video so that they would know how to navigate it, how to go through the different activities, what are the contents available. So it's very easy, I use Screencast-O-Matic to create my videos. So I just prepare the PowerPoint of my class. And I also sometimes just use because the Screencast-O-Matic pretty much records my screen. So I just use the actual website of my classes and just go through there, and it's being recorded by Screencast-O-Matic. And then I share it here in my class. So the first thing that they do is just click on that and they get an orientation of my class. Okay. And then of course, very important too is the code of conduct. Social director, we recognize disruptive behaviors in the classroom, the four-walled classroom. We also recognize disruptive behavior here in the online class. So we provide them with some guidelines and reminders. So there's also a code of conduct inside the classroom. And here is mine. So I pretty much write it down there after the course description, the course introduction, the course syllabus, course requirements, and then the code of conduct. So they have it here, they read it here, and then I actually ask them to read it out loud so that they will hear themselves pledging to the honor of not committing dishonesty, not disrupting, not bullying their classmates, etc. So that's one technique I do in order to establish rules in the classroom. But at the same time, in the course introduction, I encourage them to tell us about themselves, what they're doing right now, how they are, and something special about themselves. So next slide, please. Yeah. In online classes, we go beyond time and space. We don't have a classroom. So kanya-kanya, we're all inside the house, and then the time is not fixed. We cannot tell them to be in front of their computer at 7:30 because we wouldn't know, right? We don't, unless we do live classes all the time, but that's not advisable. Live classes should be sparingly used, maybe every other week or even beyond that. So how do we develop a routine? It's also important that we develop a routine for our students. So I have these Monday clock-ins. And so every Monday, first thing in the morning, whatever time they want to do in Monday, they have to do an activity. They have to post something in my Padlet board or whatever board that I use. Sometimes I use the Jamboard of Google. I put in questions like, Khalil Gibran said that we will not understand each other if we do not bring down our language into 7 words. So what are your 7 words? Yeah. So they will think about their 7 words and post it there. A simple how are you? How are you doing? That's all right. My 3 wishes. Yeah. Different prompts that you can give them every Monday that they will respond to indicate that they went inside the class. Okay, so that's one tip. Next slide, please. Okay, icebreakers. Okay, this is not an actual icebreaker for us to do, but if you have if you have any questions, if you want to, just comment in the box. So in the middle of the week, I would also give one icebreaker for my students. So it can be a game like this Beat COVID-19 that I found in the internet. So it's really a game. So they can actually play and share their score, everybody. I sometimes would give a quote. Like I love Einstein, even though I'm in the social sciences, but Einstein gives us a lot of wise words. So if they're feeling challenged and overwhelmed, yeah, in the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. Yeah, so make them shift their minds. And I also have this video on Project Voice. I don't know if you love spoken word. So I share with them that video and then maybe ask them to what's on their mind or what one word they describe after watching that spoken word video presentation. Okay, so icebreakers very important too because Again, students can feel overwhelmed by everything that's happening around us, especially if they have like several subjects taken and all online, and everybody wants a deadline, everybody wants a submission every week. So give them a breather. Icebreakers are breathers for them. Next slide, please. So, okay, so there are two types of discussions or activities in the online class: asynchronous and synchronous. Okay, so I think synchronous is easy to understand. It's pretty much the live session wherein everybody at one time and space in the computer are together learning. Okay, so those are live sessions that we do now in Zoom, in Skype, like this type webinar. But asynchronous discussions are discussions or activities that are not in sync, so I can do it this morning, the others can do it later, etc., etc., and we are scattered everywhere, so we're not in sync. So pretty much I do a lot of discussions. I really get to know my students in discussions because they express themselves in discussion. They write it down, and I get to know how they speak or how they express themselves to the writing. Short and sweet. I limit the number of words that they can use. And also in video, not only in text, but also in video. This is a Flipgrid activity. So just go to Flipgrid if you're not familiar to it. They respond by taking a video of themselves. So there's already an embedded feature in Flipgrid wherein you just click the plus sign and then the camera will show and then they will just answer in as short as 90 seconds, So what do you think of a creative leadership? Yeah. So they just answer in 90 seconds, all those videos there. So when I check it, I don't need to read. I'll just play the videos and then I hear them talking to me. So, there's a connection between the two of us, between us. Even though we're apart, we're not together, it's not at the same time. Next slide, please. Okay, so synchronous live classes at Zoom. So I also do that. So this is a picture, a class at the end of the class, attendance. So I just take a picture of everybody. So it will also help me in checking attendance. Okay. So pretty much we're enjoying ourselves. We're in our house clothes, relax and all that. But when we have discussions, when I ask questions, or when I give them some prompts, they are able to provide me all the, they're able to talk and express themselves and talk to me. That's very engaging. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, other activities, of course, different formats, again, learner preferences. So as a social director, you have to make sure that the class is not boring. As a social director, the class should not be boring, so you make it as creative as it can be. So you have different platforms. Assignment can be in an audio file. So I have here uploaded an assignment in my favorite person in the SoundCloud. It's actually for music, but it can also accommodate my voice. So there, assignment. Of course, video from YouTube, Jamboard post up there, and then of course a Padlet board on your favorite business leaders. Yeah, so that's the topic there. So they posted the picture of their favorite leaders, and you see their actors even. That's their favorite business leader. So why not, diba? Yeah. Okay. So I think that's pretty much how I do it in my class. I ensure that my class is fun. It's not boring. They do not just read. I have readings for them. I prepare bunches of journals and readings for them, but they have the option to read it or not. It's pretty much their option, yes, because they can actually get information on the different topics of the week from other sources. But if I want to force them to read, I would give them case studies so that they are forced to read. But with other forms of content that we can share through video, through audio, through even infographics, short bite-sized chunks of information. That's how they learn better. I think we can manage our classes better. And you know, if you are very open to feedback, feedbacking is also a very good tip in managing online classes, because they will feel that, oh, my teacher responds to me right away. They can feel the connection between the two of you. It is, however, more difficult, you know, to be an online facilitator, to be an online teacher. You have to go the extra mile. Yeah. It's easier to be a teacher in the classroom than a teacher in the online world. But it's also, I think, from my experience, pretty much satisfying. You know, the satisfaction that I feel, you know, every time they show their appreciation to me, um, it lightens the burden of really exerting that extra effort. Kasi you also have to, for example, another trick is direct messaging. If you have students who are not coming to class regularly, or is lagging behind, I call them, maybe I email them, I text them, and you know, it wakes them up and then they really appreciate the poke. Um, and that's really how we do it as an online teacher. You know, we have to be more sensitive. You know, we have to be more caring as teachers. Our caring side as teachers. Um, we just have to like enlarge them all. But of course, the best part is that as online teachers, we don't need to go to school, so we save on gas, transport, we save on a lot of things too. You know, even our clothes, we can be comfortable in our own houses. So there are pros and cons, but I think in the end, it's really about continuing the education of our students. You know, we have the situation now. What will we do? It's our choice. Should we adapt to the situation, or should we let ourselves be paralyzed and not move on? But life will move on, and as long as there's life, you know, there is still hope. And we'll never know. Maybe we're creating a new civilization now for humankind. Thank you very much. I think that's the end of my talk. Next slide. I think it's the thank you.
Wow. Thank you very much, Miss Sheila, for all those tips. No? Ang dami. I'm taking down notes here. No? Mamaya siguro magandang i-recap din natin dun sa comment section para matulungan din natin yung participants natin to also retain all those tips, no, for recitation. No? Miss Mitch, how are you?
Yes, sir. Actually, I've gained as well some tips from Miss Sheila, different platforms. I've heard as well na first time ko lang narinig, like the Flipgrid, ganyan. Marami pa lang pwede pang gamitin aside from the other platforms that we're using right now.
All
Ayan po.
right. So,
So, pwede na po tayo mag-entertain ng questions, Sir JB, na nakapost po sa ating comment section. And then, Miss Sheila will
ah,
answer those.
okay. First question that I have here, no, medyo nasagot na kanina pero it will be good to reiterate then, no, for all of our viewers to hear directly from Ma'am Sheila. No? Question po from Ma'am Helen Angelica Vallejos.
is your own personal space. It now has work there with your So as I mentioned, it's really going extra mile for online
Yeah,
teachers.
extra mile na. Okay, sige. Miss Mitch, ano yung next question natin?
Actually, sir, mostly of the questions that I'm seeing here is related to that, yung how can we assure the students will be attending the online session for that day. That could be a good way, calling the students. But what if po, no, tinawagan na po natin sila and we do our ways on in terms of communicating the students, and despite of that, hindi pa rin po sila pumasok sa online session. How are we going to manage those kinds of students, Ms. Sheila?
Okay, that's a very good question. Even in the classroom, when we have the classroom teaching, I have this philosophy in teaching that learning is a commitment from the students. I would tell them that I will not force you to learn. I will not force you to come to class. I actually do not check attendance if I tell you, because the students will come to my class if they think they're going to learn something from me, if they think I'm not a boring teacher, So it's their commitment. So I tell them to commit to their learning or not to commit if they don't want to. But that's the first initial step that I establish to them. Okay. Now that we are in an online teaching platform, it's more difficult, right? I think we would have to establish the commitment effort from each other, from the students and teacher. And now comes the role of learning guides or companions from the family, the household. There should be somebody, the parents usually, that would help us ensure that their children would attend to their classes. Of course, they're paying for the tuition fee, so they should help their kids to go online, provide the equipment if they can afford it, possible. And then, maybe the time for it. You just remind their children to check on their classes and do something every day, make an output, be productive.
Okay po. Thank you so much for that answer, Ms. Sheila. Sir GB, can you still see other questions or may mga comments po ba tayo?
Before I throw my next question, now that Ma'am Sheila mentioned yung tulungan sa bahay, yung support ng family to remind the students na nandun sa bahay na, kumusta na yung progress mo sa subjects mo, ganyan, di ba? Papasok nga yung, naalala ko yung kahapon lang, the webinar episode with parents, So the level of the degree of commitment also of the parents to the learning process now that we're transitioning to possibly more online instruction in our schools. So maybe shout out lang po sa ating mga participants, administrators and teachers. If you'll also be interested to join us in the webinar series for parents, pwede rin po kayong umattend doon. We'll announce details on this before we end the show. Okay, so ang next question natin, isa pang na-note ko dito, nakita ko sa chat. Si Sir Joseph Sithar or Sithar, ang tanong niya dito, alternatives, what if umandar yung mga buwan, no vaccines yet? What if our schools are already open for face-to-face learning, but then it's the parents who won't allow their kids to go back to school? Anong gagawin natin?
What I see in the future of education is really blended learning. I think we really cannot go back to full classroom learning that is, every day you're there in school, but to complement our education with online learning. It will actually resolve a lot of problems, not just health issues on social distancing, but infrastructure problems, for example, of government, the need for classrooms. So if a certain group of students will be at home while another group of students will be in school to study, so that would really help a lot. And also, transforming the family and the guidance of the parents to their students It's not just now leaving everything to the school, leaving everything to the yaya, but get an active role in the development of their kids. What else? Traffic, that will help a lot in traffic. So pretty much, I think blended learning is the way to go in the future. If we get back to school, but now we have limitations. Class size is also an issue. DepEd is saying that class size should be limited to 15 to 20 maximum. See, so what are we going to do? Are we going to build more classrooms, or are we going to complement our classes with online learning? So I think that's the way to go in the future.
Alright. So talagang it's really very, very likely that we'll have to really adapt to this. No? I want to read a shout out here from Noel Hailani. Thank you very much, moderators, speakers, Miss Sheila, and First EduSpec staff. No? The webinar will help us educators a lot in adapting to the challenging changes in education in these dangerous times. Thank you very much po. Napaka-inspiring ng mga ganitong comment. Thank you po. Mitch?
Okay, so I guess we can have this one as our last question. I just have this in mind as well, Miss Sheila. How actually do you handle misbehavior in an online class? Paano po kaya yun?
Okay, misbehavior. Okay, so the misbehavior in an online class has a different picture. It's not uh, it's not similar to the one inside the classroom, because number one, there's no physical contact. Okay, um, an example of misbehavior is, for example, online conflict or bullying. Yan, bullying. Uh, in handling bullying, like inside the classroom, you don't um, experience the physical, but the mental and psychological. This is where uh, your direct messaging to your learners will come in. You talk to your student, uh, and clarify things where the student is coming from and what is the source of the misbehavior. It's not because the student really wants that to happen. Maybe there are reasons for the student's misbehavior. So um, it's not isolating because we're already isolated, but direct messaging and talking to that student. And of course, the other student that was offended, you also talk to that student. Um, Misbehavior, sometimes the fear of the teacher is usually cheating, dishonesty. Yeah. And that's now going to be addressed in designing. lot of plagiarism tools there. See, and then you would know if the student is cheating or not.
Yeah, malaking biyaya talaga yung copy-paste, no? Pero madali ring mahuli kung tutuusin.
True.
Alright.
Okay po. So, I guess that's it po for all the questions. So, if ever na meron pa pong additional questions dun po sa comment sections, we can actually answer those questions. We can give it to Miss Sheila so she can answer it as well. And meron din naman po tayong mga administrators sa ating comment sections who can help in answering those questions that you still have.
That's about it. Thank you very much, Ma'am Sheila. No? So, grabe, we're so glad to have heard from you. No? Salamat sa pagtanggap sa aming invitation. We hope to see you again. No? Baka pwede bang ma-invite ulit.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, Sir JB and Miss Mitch.
Thank you so much po, Ms. Sheila. And thank you so much as well to our teachers and school administrators who joined us here on the second session of FEI webinar series.